We pause in the silent mystery of life and death, time and space, in the holy peace of this hour. Let us now reflect on the life of Ted Wright, a man of more than 80 years, 15 tomorrow. The full cycle of his life has been completed, and for this, we are grateful. Rest assured that this will be a time of celebration and thanksgiving more than a time of sadness and loss. Though the pain of losing one we loved is present this hour, we are also deeply grateful for our time together. In time, our feelings of appreciation will overshadow the sadness, and even now, we rejoice in his memory. May a sense of relief come over us that all his suffering has come to an end. May a sense of joy come over us as we remember him in the full vigor of his life. May a sense of hope come over us that his life has given us so much for which to live and to love. It is our tradition to light a chalice in our congregation, so we light it, and we also say these words, welcoming all free seekers of truth and meaning. We gather to excite the human spirit, to inspire its growth and development, to respond morally and ethically to a troubled world, and to sustain a vital and nurturing religious community. And Ted would like us to enjoy this first hymn, Dear Lord and Father of Mankind. And if you want to sing along at home, you'll see the words. Dear Lord and Father of mankind, forgive our foolish ways. Recall us in our rightful mind, in purer lives thy service find, in deeper reverence praise, in simple trust like theirs who heard beside the Syrian sea. The gracious calling of the Lord, let us like them without a word rise up and follow thee. O Sabbath rest by Galilee, O calm of hills above, where Jesus knelt to share with thee the silence of eternity, interpreted by love. Drop thy still dews of quietness till all our striving cease. Take from our souls the strain and stress, and let our ordered lives confess the beauty of thy peace. And Ted's daughter, Meg, will be reading some poems for us that Ted enjoyed.
Good evening. I'm going to read 3 poems for Dad. 2 are poems that he chose and left with Mom to be shared at his memorial, and the third is one that I've added in. So the first is Robert Frost's Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. This is The Garden of Proserpine by Algernon Charles Swinburne. Here, where the world is quiet, here where all trouble seems dead winds and spent waves riot in doubtful dreams of dreams, I watch the green field growing for reaping folk and sowing, for harvest time and mowing, a sleepy world of streams. I am tired of tears and laughter, and men that laugh and weep, of what may come hereafter for men that sow to reap. I am weary of days and hours, blown buds of barren flowers, desires and dreams and powers, and everything but sleep. Here, life has death for neighbor, and far from eye or ear, wan waves and wet winds labor, weak ships and spirits steer. They drive adrift, and whither they wot not who make thither. But no such winds blow hither, and no such things grow here. No growth of moor or coppice, no heather flower or vine, no bloomless buds of poppies, green grapes of Proserpine, pale beds of blowing rushes, where no leaf blooms or blushes, save this whereout she crushes for dead men deadly wine. Pale, without name or number, in fruitless fields of corn, they bow themselves and slumber all night till light is born, and like a soul belated, in hell and heaven unmated, by clouds and mist abated, comes out of darkness morn. Though one were strong as seven, he too with death shall dwell, nor wake with wings in heaven, nor weep for pains in hell. Though one were fair as roses, his beauty clouds encloses, and well though love reposes, in the end it is not well. Pale beyond porch and portal, crowned with calm leaves, she stands, who gathers all things mortal with cold mortal hands. Her languid lips are sweeter than love's who fears to greet her, to men that mix and meet her from many times and lands. She waits for each and other, she waits for all men born, forgets the earth her mother, the life of fruits and corn. And spring and seed and swallow take wing for her and follow, where summer song rings hollow, and flowers are put to scorn. There go the loves that wither, the old loves with wearier wings, and all dead years draw thither, and all disastrous things. Dead dreams of days forsaken, blind buds that snows have shaken, wild leaves that winds have taken, red strays of ruined springs. We are not sure of sorrow, and joy was never sure. Today will die tomorrow. Time stoops to no man's lure. And love, grown faint and fretful, with lips but half regretful, sighs, and with eyes forgetful weeps, that no loves endure. From too much love of living, from hope and fear set free, we thank with brief thanksgiving, whatever gods may be, that no life lives forever, that dead men rise up never, that even the weariest river winds somewhere safe to see? Then star nor sun shall waken, nor any chance of light, nor sound of waters shaken, nor any sound or sight, nor wintry leaves nor vernal, nor days nor things diurnal, only the sleep eternal in an eternal night. Well, Dad loved a poem with good rhyme and rhythm. This last one doesn't have that, but I wanted to include it because, you know, the first two are about needing rest. It's clear Dad wanted rest. But, you know, he spent so much of his life researching his ancestors and relatives, and I like to think he's going to see them after he has some rest. So that's why I chose this by Reverend Luther F. Beecher, called What is Dying? I am standing upon the seashore. A ship at my side spreads her white sails to the morning breeze and starts for the blue ocean. She is an object of beauty and strength, and I stand and watch her until she hangs like a speck of white cloud, just where the sea and sky come down to meet and mingle with each other. Then someone at my side says, "There, she's gone." Gone where? Gone from my sight, that is all. She's just as large in mast and hull and spar as she was when she left my side, and just as able to bear her load of living freight to the place of her destination. Her diminished size is in me and not in her. And just at that moment, when someone at my side says, "There, she's gone," there are other eyes watching for her coming, and other voices ready to take up the glad shout, "There she comes!" And that is dying. Thank you. Rest and sail on well, Dad.
Beautifully read. Thank you. Ted had the great good fortune to live a long, fruitful life. The unpleasant truth about living a long time is enduring a progressive decline of health. For Ted, that was the loss of sight, of hearing, and an advanced case of spinal degeneration. Yet his mind remained active and curious as it had always been till the last days of life. If I spoke about South Asia or Muslims from the pulpit, Ted would be sure to have a comment to share at the end of the service. That was one of his academic specialties, studying Muslim minority groups in India. That wasn't his area of study for his PhD, however. Postdoctoral work in Chicago in 1961 and 62 stimulated his interest in this research area. World War II delayed him a bit going to college. A graduate of Landon School for Boys in Bethesda, Maryland, he was 18 in 1944 and entered the Navy for duty. Fortunately for him, the war ended before he would have been sent to serve in the invasion of Japan. With a little help from the GI Bill and his native intelligence, he got into Swarthmore, graduated magna cum laude in 1949, then to Yale, graduated in 1957 with a PhD. His first teaching appointment was at Bates College in Lewiston, Maine, where he taught for 10 years in the government department. Ted came to the Albany area to teach in the Albany Political Science Department in 1966. A third-generation Unitarian, he joined our congregation soon after arriving. There was another member here that recently arrived with a master's in public health from UC Berkeley. They met, as so many have, in the Adirondack Mountain Hiking Club on the trail up a mountain, one of the 46 Ted climbed. They fell in love and were married by our former minister, Nick Cardell, in 1967. Their first child, Henry, whom you'll hear from later, was born on a trip to Bombay in 1970. The twins, Meg and Kat, followed 2 years later. We've got some lovely pictures of the family you'll get to enjoy later. I'll leave describing him as a father to them. I just want to note one thing, though, that Ted was a serious hiker. His father was very athletic and wanted Ted to be a football player. That didn't happen. But he enjoyed vigorous activity outdoors. That included climbing to the top of Mount Marcy while carrying his two daughters, one on his back and the other carried in the front on his chest. That's impressive in my book. At Albany, he taught political development, democracies, totalitarianism, South Asian politics, minority groups in new nations, contemporary government, comparative ethnicity, and comparative public policy. He concluded his 40-year teaching career in 1995. A shared passion for both Ted and Sue was travel, and they visited all 7 continents with many trips to India and Pakistan. Retirement allowed them to do much more of that, as well as spend more time with the growing crop of now 6 grandchildren. One hobby I enjoyed when I was a child and I shared with Ted was stamp collecting. My father, also a university professor, got letters from his graduate students from other countries, so I had a good source for them. Plus, I got QSL cards from shortwave radio stations around the globe. I imagine Ted had a great collection of them from Asia. In this electronic age, I wonder how many children even consider this hobby. If only email messages had pretty stamps on them. Oh well. I want to also mention a couple of other lifelong interests of Ted's. He learned to play piano as a child and continued to play throughout his life. We're featuring Debussy and Chopin in our musical choices for this service, as they were his favorites. Another strong interest of his was the Dutch Settler Society of Albany, given his genealogical bent. He served as past president and was an active member. And I'm hoping that maybe someone from that society is here today who can maybe speak about his involvement a little later. We'll have an open time for brief stories and memories. How was retirement for Ted? Here are some of his words he shared in the SUNY Retirement Service Corps newsletter. Far from finding retirement traumatic, I found it a great relief to be freed from the burdens of grading and committee meetings, so I could focus on my research on Indian Muslims. In that connection, I have been very active in several professional organizations, helping put together panels for conferences and pushing through papers to publication. I visited India and Pakistan 6 times to deliver papers. On 2 of these, I was accompanied by our son and once by my wife. I'll close with Ted's advice for us on retirement, which captures a bit of his character. Plan in advance. Don't put off retirement so you can enjoy it while you're still able. Get a good financial advisor. Keep up with your hobbies. Cultivate your relatives near and far. Visit them and your professional age mates. Attend school and college reunions, keep fit. I'll end my remarks here. And I have some recorded remembrances to now share, mostly family. Let me share my screen again. We'll start with Bill Batt. He's a member of our congregation. And Henry will speak, then Kat, and then Susan.
Ted was a part of a generation of social scientists that built its research and academic analysis around what were termed paradigms. Arguably the most influential book responding to paradigm building was Thomas Kuhn's Structure of Scientific Revolutions, published in 1962. Prior to that, one could argue that B.F. Skinner's behaviorism, best set forth in 1938, was most influential. Kuhn was a reaction to behaviorism, as well as to another reigning paradigm, Talcott Parsons' structural functionalism. Ted had little regard for any of this. He was an institutionalist. He also had high regard for the importance of culture in explaining political events. It put him apart from most of the other political scientists in the field and in the Albany department. His place in the department was secure, but he didn't participate in the internal debates that prevailed in the profession and in the department during those years. His closest colleague was in history, DeWitt Ellenwood. Most of his teaching was at the undergraduate level. Largely for this reason, history, culture, and institutions were not fashionable approaches. Another important indicant of social science departments was relevance. My years of graduate study were the years of political turmoil, and having served my Peace Corps years in Thailand, there were pressures to be involved, not so much in coursework, but in department corridors and lunch cafes. Ted had little interest in this discourse or activity. He was by temperament much more conservative, even though his political views were liberal. I never had coursework with Ted. He was on my dissertation committee because of my interest in Thailand, closest to his field, South Asia. My fascination with Thai thought and culture, and Asian thought generally, were connected best in the work of Lawrence Kohlberg. I showed that the patrimonial social political structure of Thai society corresponded very well to Kohlberg's stage 3 moral reasoning. But at that time, my dissertation chairman wasn't interested in any of this. Ted was the only one to support my work. Ultimately, I ended up with a thesis without a thesis, just lots of information. The other two on the committee saw these ideas as ethnocentric and even racist. These ideas are widely accepted now, especially in the work of Jürgen Habermas. But I wanted my degree, and it didn't matter if material was removed. After a short stint in the shrinking academic job market, I took a position in the New York State Legislature. Continuity was better than year-to-year appointments. Ted and Sue followed my life and were very supportive. We grew closer when we'd see each other at FUSA and around Albany. Ted and Sue's Christmas and New Year's notes were very detailed and encouraging. His contribution to my graduate education was a healthy skepticism toward faddish academic paradigms.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'd like to say to you a few things about my dad, as I knew him. You'll hear a lot of things about him. There was a lot to him. But anyway, from my perspective, he was primarily, of course, a great dad. And I really remember and treasure the memories of all the time he spent with me. Now, he wasn't perhaps someone who spent as much time with me as I've spent with my own child. He wasn't able to do that, and it was a different time. But at the same time, compared to many of my friends' parents, he spent a lot of time with me. And these things often were done in a very organized and regular way. So for instance, every Sunday we would walk a few miles to go to pick up the New York Times newspaper. And during that entire time, we would talk. And sometimes I would ask him to explain to me the Vietnam War and or something like that. And sometimes this was just because I might have heard about it in school, or because we were watching a TV show on PBS about it or whatever. And this was a time where we were just the two of us together. And to a certain extent, also, we were enjoying nature, although that was more a thing for hikes. And, we were in the suburbs. It used to be the country where I grew up, but it was increasingly the suburbs. And I remember that as the years went by, the number of developments encroached on the paths and the areas we walked. And this was something that pained him greatly, because he loved nature and he enjoyed being in it, and he found it to be an ideal setting for conversation and being with people. The famous story, of course, always is that he met my mother in a canoe, and this was, of course, because of the Adirondack Mountain Club. And so, he liked this. And in fact, I remember at a certain point, it just became impossible for us to do this walk any longer. And eventually he gave in and had the paper delivered. But still, at that point, I was perhaps, 17, 18, or even older. And so we had all those years where we've been able to take that walk. And except for the time when the dog bit me in the wallet, when we came too close to a low fence, we were never in any danger, and we didn't get into any trouble. And so I think that, it was those times that we spent. And I spent time, of course, with my mother in different ways as well. We used to actually more go drive places. But the idea is I treasured that time, just the two of us, because while it was always nice to be together as a family with my sisters and also sometimes other family members, that time, just the two of us. And I was able to recapture some of that time later when I went on 2 occasions with him to India. And partly this was, of course, I was helping him out professionally with his lectures and his papers, but also we were talking. We would be in the hotel room together and we would chat, and we went to a movie together, I remember, to see what it was like. And all these sort of things were another way to spend time together. And of course, it was different now that at that point I was an adult, but at the same time, though, we had not had a static relationship. And as I had grown older and my worldview had changed, we talked about things in a different way, but it was always a dialogue that was going on. And he shared that kind of relationship also with his own friends, and it provided me with a model of how you can relate to people, whether they're a family member or a friend, because in a way these are all about love, and you should, I hope, love your family members and your friends, and sometimes perhaps even you have a good relationship with a coworker or whatever. But and so then you want to exchange views and even debate things, and he loved debating things. And we didn't always agree, but it was never turned into a shouting match. Although I must admit there was a time once where he was so mad about Salman Rushdie that I was pretty mad at him. But we kept talking, and I'll miss that about him. And I know many of you also will miss that about him. So let's remember him today, and we won't forget, I'm sure.
We received so many lovely cards from all of you remembering great things about our dad. Remembering what a wise and kind and humble man Dad was. But I think most importantly, at least 95% of the time, he was perfectly content where he was. He didn't waste any time or mental energy worrying about other people's opinions. And he definitely followed his own path. So, of course, as a teenager, this was horribly horrifying for me. He was really, I thought he was the most embarrassing creature on the planet Earth. But I got over it and, of course, grew up and became a parent myself and had a very different view of him and definitely appreciate his uniqueness now. Having said all that, Dad did have his quirks. And when you march to the beat of your own drum, we tend to get made fun of sometimes, at least by our children. So some of you have heard this list that I originally made for his 90th birthday. But I think it's worth mentioning again, because in the end, these are the things that made Dad, Dad. So here we go. Things we have learned from our father. Write events on the calendar or they won't happen. Make sure you write it as small as possible so it is barely legible. Know how to sew a button on a coat. The coat may be 40 years old and have great big holes in it, but at least it has its buttons. Always bring a book. You never know when you will have to wait. Finish what you have started and give it 100% of your attention. If you have a thought in your head, get it out before you forget it and continue to share until you're done, even if it's 3 hours later and you have lost your audience. Education is power and knowledge is power. Who you know is equally as important as what you know. In fact, if you know enough people, you can travel the country without ever having to stay at a hotel. And while you're at it, make sure you visit every old cemetery you see. Make sure your children are packed like sardines in a hot car or small wet tent for long hours at a time so they really get to know each other. Do your chores. Everyone needs to help out. The sooner you get done, the more time there is for a nap. Up and at 'em. Do not sleep the day away. There is always something that needs doing and is worthwhile. And budget. Save your money for the things that you love to do. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day, but dessert is a close second. If you want to make sure things get done, make a list. In fact, make many lists, preferably on the back of a napkin or used envelope in the above mentioned illegible handwriting. Be kind all the time. Respect other people and their differences. Travel the world, see how others live. We are only one of many fascinating cultures in the world. There is much to learn from them. History is very important and we can learn from the mistakes made in the past. Being able to express yourself both verbally and in writing will help you get far in life. Grammar is equally important. Make sure you correct any grammatical errors you hear people make, especially those made by your teenage children and their friends. And while you are sweeping, don't eat the brown Cheerio off the floor. It may turn out to be a piece of cat food. Keep moving. If you don't use it, you lose it. Get outside in nature every day. Pack a bag, include a raincoat and trail mix. Make sure the trail mix has more M&Ms than fruit. And most importantly, a cookie and milk is the perfect ending to the day. Thank you, Dad.
The Web of Light by Philip Green Wright, Ted's grandfather. Methought that once in spirit I lay within a wood, and over all the landscape brooded the peace of God. In hazy autumn largeness, the sun glowed still and bright. 2 angels floated down his beams, bearing a web of light. A web of light unbroken and reaching to the sun. But I seemed to know the pattern it should have when all was done. And lo, the long web trembled, and a voice that seemed to cleave my inmost being thrilled its threads with this one message: weave. From the pattern known within thee, on the peril of thy soul, weave and weave well. Thy weaving may make or mar the whole. And awe and wonder thrilled me, for in my fingers lay a single thread of living light to work with through the day. O glory of the vision, I seem to rise, upborne on unseen wings, still weaving in the stillness of the morn. And the sun glowed milder, larger, goal of my radiant way, till fair and white before my sight the holy city lay. O music soft, celestial, O minarets and towers, flashing unending sunrise from dawn's transcending hours. In the afterglow of vision, uplift above the clod, my soul floats on to greet the sun, bathed in the peace of God.
Let us have a short musical interlude with some slides to enjoy. So now we'd like to have a time for your memories and your reflections. And I know that we've got several people who definitely want to share some. And the way that I'd like to have you do them in order is there's two ways you can raise your hand in the Zoom universe. One is if you go to the reactions on your Zoom toolbar, and if you click on reactions, you'll see there's a raise hand function there. You can do that. But if you have an older version, a lot older version of Zoom, you'll find that they still had a blue hand that you could click on in your participant menu. So those are the two ways you can get access to raising your hand, and that will help me decide who to ask to go next. So if you could find that, and I'm hoping that you can do that. I'm going to switch to gallery view here to see if I've got anybody ready to share, because I can see we haven't got a lot of sophisticated Zoom users here. Aha! Let's go with you first, Jopa. Let's if you could unmute your microphone and then start sharing.
Okay.
Great. And I'm going to put you on spotlight here.
Oh, wow.
There you go.
Hi, everybody. Those were wonderful sharings, and this is just a real quick one. I'm Pat Minahan, Joe Minahan, interwoven with the Stand Fast. So I'm an outlaw. But I had just met Joe, and like 6 weeks later was invited to be up at the Minahan Binghamton house, not telling me how rare it was for him to bring a date there. But I was about to meet some very interesting people. And we're in the kitchen after breakfast, and the door opens, and in comes the Standfast family. And the first thing I ever heard out of Ted's mouth was, "If the phone rings and it's the Pakistani embassy, it's for me." First thing I ever heard from this man. And I thought he was kidding. And he wasn't. He really wasn't. And it was just an enjoyable day from there, including Sue, you showing how to reduce stress by juggling scarves. So it was a lovely day. Great memories for me, as brief as it all was, but that's my share.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And let's go to Wendy. Wendy figured out how to raise her hand. So I'm going to spotlight her. And let's give you a chance to share some words. You have to unmute yourself first, though. That's the key thing to do. Because we won't be able to hear you until you unmute yourself. So you just have to, you'll have to find how to unmute yourself there.
It should be if you put it, the cursor in your picture up in the right-hand corner, unmute should come up.
Yes. Zoom used to let us unmute people, but it doesn't do that anymore. Let me try seeing if I can encourage it to unmute you. Oh, I did. I was able to unmute you.
Okay, well, yeah, I can't even find my own picture.
All right. Well, good. We got you.
Good.
We got you unmuted. So go right ahead.
Anyway, hi, I'm Wendy Willoughby. Wendy Wright Willoughby, and Uncle Teddy was my only uncle. And I have really fond memories of him when he, all the way back to when he was a young confirmed bachelor. And I remember him driving his Morris Minor around in Ithaca in trying to save money on gas all the time, you know, back when it was 25 cents a gallon. And of course, I have a lot of fond memories of him on picnics. He used to come to California, and we would go to Foothills Park and go on hikes and have barbecues. And he, obviously, everybody knows he loved the outdoors. And then we went on a hiking trip up Mount Tamalpais to practice for a burro trip. You saw a picture there of my father, Douglas Wright, with him, his brother, his only brother. And I had my burro picked out, Tamale, and we had a wonderful experience. That was a great experience for me, making friends and learning about hiking with him. But on this practice trip, you know, when we got to the top of the mountain, you know, he put a backpack on me so I'd know what to do with carrying weight. And at the top, when he gave me the chocolate candy bar, I was kind of taken aback because I thought this is too much of an indulgence for him. You know, he you know, it seemed like he was, you know, withheld things like that somewhat. So, yeah, so that was a wonderful experience. And then he used to send me birthday cards every year. And, you know, sometimes they included a check, which of course I look forward to. And he always wrote detailed notes and wrote, you know, everything really small. When Kathy was reading that, I thought that was very comical. Good job. And yeah, I'm gonna miss him greatly. My kids all loved him. The grandkids loved him. He came to California and went swimming with them, barbecuing. We have a lot of good memories of spending time with him outdoors. And then on his 90th birthday, he had another birthday party out here in California. We did a Western family reunion with all the people from out west that were related to him. And my daughter-in-law made a gorgeous cake for him that was a replica of the old-fashioned suitcases with the straps on them, with the decals and everything. It was just really gorgeous. So anyway, so that was a wonderful time, that birthday party. And of course, he had all his notes prepared to, you know, to talk about the family history. And that was our last, I think that was our last time. Maybe we did see him one more time after that with Sue, and they were out here for an event. Yeah. But anyway, I'm going to really miss him a lot. I loved Uncle Ted, and so did my family. And I hope we can continue to have ties with the rest of you in the future. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. That's great. And I'm looking at a fellow who doesn't look like a Kimberly, but I think you're up next. Let me ask you to unmute, and I will replace you with the spotlight.
Sorry, my microphone is on a headset. I'm on.
We can hear you.
Computer.
We can hear you just fine. So go right ahead.
All right. Well, the one thing I can always say about Sue and Ted is that they really taught the importance of family. And even when a lot of the family moved out west, and it seemed like every main event we would have in our lives, Sue and Ted would both be there. And what's always funny is Ted was always the one who'd be going around meeting all these people that he's never met before and having all their family history by the time the event was over. So I always thought it was fun to hear him talking to everybody and learning about their lives and showing interest. I think he always made you feel like you were important to him. And I always appreciated that. And I said the only time that he made me feel bad is every year when I'd get their Christmas letter and I'd read it and I'd say, I don't do anything in my life compared to them. But I always appreciated reading, and I always just was amazed at how active their lives have been. And I'm just so thankful that both of them were a part of my life. And then just hopefully we can see Sue a lot more and get some trips out to the East Coast now that things hopefully are getting better. So sorry we can't be there in person, but thanks for having this Zoom meeting that we can just remember Ted and be thankful for all he was to us.
Thank you. And let's go to Bob. And I'm going to replace spotlight on you. And if you can unmute yourself. He's going to, you did it. You're unmuted. Great.
Okay. Well, certainly the endorsement of David, my son, and the fact that Debbie and Dale, my other children, are here and watching, certainly endorses the fact that Ted was very generous with his time and visiting the families. I just want to share one beautiful trip that we had. I spent many years in Muslim countries, living either in Saudi Arabia or even 1 year in Abu Dhabi. An attempt to get together with Susie and Ted was thwarted by the slowness of the Saudi Arabian visa authorities. So I went across the bridge and we met in Bahrain and had a very interesting trip to some place that I bet none of you have ever been to. We took a boat trip to the island of Hawar, which is just off the shore of Qatar. And it was in dispute at the time. The UN was trying to resolve the dispute between Bahrain and Qatar over who actually owned this little island that had a nice resort hotel on it. And it didn't matter to us because we enjoyed the beautiful sunshine and beach and the interesting trip and the time together. So just an endorsement of Ted and Sue's ability to get around the world and to keep visiting family and friends. We sure loved him and we'll miss him dearly.
Great, thank you. And I don't see any more hands and time is zipping by. So I think we'll have some time at the end for people to share some. Whoops, I see one more there. This will be the last one. How about that? I'm going to switch you to the spotlight. And if you can say your name. And you do need to unmute too. You do need to figure out unmute there. Oh, not speed up.
Okay.
Can you be heard now?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes. No,
Yay,
yeah, very
okay.
good.
Thank
You figured it out.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I know it says James Cheney on there. That's my husband. I'm Genevieve, and I'm a relative. And my grandmother was Charlotte Winters, Ted's auntie, and my mother, his first cousin. And Ted and Sue would visit us often. I'm in Los Angeles, California right now, and he would visit us often throughout the years, our lives, and he would stop over usually when they're having a layover in between their international trips. And he would always come by and visit us. And we always received the newsletter every year for Christmas, and my mother would receive it and she would share it with us. And you know, Ted has really been a really wonderful kind of cousin who would visit us and keep us in touch with what's going on with his part of the world. And I really appreciate how much he included us. I also shared an interest in India and the subcontinent. I've been there myself. And have also an interest in art, and I worked at the Getty Museum for 25 years. And my husband is James, who's here. You might have, he's not here right now, is an art historian by trade, and was very fortunate to see Ted and Sue a couple years ago when they stopped over in LA once more. And we went to the Indian restaurant where we got full thali plates, and Ted packed away the entire thali, you know, like within a half an hour. And that was like, I have to say, impressive. So anyway, I know there are people here whom I've never met, and Ted's children I've seen in photographs year after year. That would be Kathy, Margaret, and Henry. And I just would like to introduce myself a little bit, that I'm Genevieve, and I'm your cousin or second cousin, or I don't know exactly how that works, but it's very nice to see everyone. And I miss Ted very much. We didn't spend a huge amount of time together, but he made a big impression on me in particular. And I'm very sorry to see him go. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Well, I think the next thing that we're going to do is I have a prayer and meditation for you as we move towards the closing of our service. And I'll grab the spotlight here back. And let us turn inward for a time of prayer. Holy Spirit of life and love, God of our hearts, minds, and souls, persistent presence that guides us from within, we honor and praise you in the many names by which you are known. We've gathered to memorialize and celebrate the life of one who walks with us no more. We lift up our love for Ted. We lift up the ways he has touched our life and the ways he touched the lives of others and the legacy he leaves for us. In death, there is grief and loss that is heightened by remembering. And in the remembering, there can also be joy and appreciation. As William Brake put it so beautifully, joy and woe are woven fine, clothing for the soul divine. Under every grief and pine runs a joy with silken twine. May we sense that silken twine this evening that connects our hearts to Ted's now and forevermore. May he never be a stranger to us, knowing his memory can connect us always in the heart. Ted lives no more, but we now are the vessels of his memory. His memory lives on in us and through us. Whatever his destination after this life, be it heaven or rebirth or a peace that transcends all, or returning to the source from which he came, let us have no fear for that journey. He is at peace. May we also be at peace. Let us be filled with gratitude for the fullness of the life he enjoyed. So be it, and amen. We have a musical meditation now with more pictures and more music. And some closing words by Robert Terry Weston. Beautiful are the youth, whose rich emotions flash and burn, whose lithe bodies, filled with energy and grace, sway in their happy dance of life. And beautiful, likewise, are the mature, with learned compassion and patience, charity and wisdom, though they be rarer than beautiful youth. But most beautiful and most rare is a gracious old age, which has drawn from life the skill to take its varied strands, the harsh advance of age, the pang of grief, the passing of dear friends, the loss of strength, and with fresh insight, weave them into a rich and gracious pattern all its own. This is the greatest skill of all, to take the bitter with the sweet and make it beautiful. To take the whole of life in all its moods, its strengths and weaknesses, and of that whole make one great and celestial harmony. Let us extinguish our chalice. And these are the words that we like to use when we do that. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And we have, let me say, a rousing closing hymn, A Mighty Fortress is Our God. And again, if you'd like to sing along at home, the words will be on the screen. Well, that concludes our service with quite a rousing